Welcome to the Snazzy Sage podcast. I'm Dr. Carrie, your host and coach. Each week, I chat with remarkable guests who are thriving in their next chapter with confidence, purpose, and style. Because the next chapter isn't about age, it's all about attitude. Let's dive in. My guest today is someone who proves you really can have two callings and make people laugh while doing it. By day, Dr. Vien Phommachanh is a practicing ear, nose, and throat doctor, or ENT, in Sarasota, Florida. By night, he transforms into comic doc, bringing his sharp wit to stages across the U.S. and internationally. He's performed on major comedy festivals, appeared on CBS, and recently released his own dry bar comedy special. I'm thrilled to welcome the hilarious and multi-talented Dr. Vien Phommachanh to the Snazzy Sage podcast. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited you are here. I have been following you for years, and it's an absolute pleasure to meet you. Can you share a little bit more about yourself?
I was born in Laos. We were war immigrants from the Vietnam War, so we left when I was very young. I came into the States when I was about 3. We lived in the Boston area for about 5 years, and then my family moved to Florida. I grew up mostly in St. Pete, Florida. I went to Tulane for college and medical school. I live in Sarasota, Florida now, which is about 45 minutes south of where I grew up.
Sarasota is absolutely beautiful, and they have one of the best comedy clubs in the country there, the McCurdy's.
Yeah, McCurdy's is great, and I'm actually scheduled to be there in December.
So what made you decide to start stand-up comedy?
The short answer is probably a midlife crisis. I had gotten to a point in my career where I had done a lot and there wasn't much left to do as far as mountains to climb. I was the chief of our service. I was the president of the medical society, and I got bored. And I remembered I always loved comedy, and I always wanted to give it a try. It was sort of a bucket list thing, and I just happened to see that the local club in Curdy's does a comedy boot camp where you get to learn how to write jokes and perform. And I just wanted to try it, sort of a one-time in my life thing, just because I'd always been a huge fan. And I also know that, I had to give medical talks, and I know that I wasn't a very good speaker. I was boring, and so twofold, I wanted to try it, and then the other was just to be a better speaker for lectures. And I did the boot camp, and it was great. I did a show, and it was just very natural. I got a lot of laughs, and then I was just hooked. I think every comic note will tell you that that's sort of like a drug when you hear an audience laugh, and you can't resist trying to do it again, and it becomes almost an addiction.
I have to share that I started in a very similar fashion. I was a college professor for many years, and I wrote a book called Seduce Your Customers, and I was going on a nationwide speaking tour, and I always thought it was a little bit funny. I was good at speaking, but I was great in front of 30 people, not in front of 1,000. So I signed up for the stand-up comedy class at the Improv in Fort Lauderdale. And like yourself, that first show, as soon as someone laughed at my joke, I was done. I'm like, this is amazing. And you're right, it's like an addiction. You just want to go over and over again. It's improved my public speaking skills. So now when I give a lecture, and probably like yourself speaking, I'm not expecting people to laugh, so it's okay. But when people don't laugh in comedy, that's like the worst feeling.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, I don't think I've given a lecture since. The comedy just became its own thing for me, and then the speaking thing just isn't really an issue anymore. I don't really give any lectures anymore. I'm just doing comedy now.
Well, comedy is so much more fun.
It is. It's true.
And so what are some of the topics that you talk about in your comedy sets?
Basically, it's just the story of my life. I joke about my upbringing, being Laotian. It's a unique perspective on, immigrant life. My parents, I make fun of a lot. I make fun of my career, the kind of weird things you see as an ear, nose, and throat doctor. There's a lot of snot. There's a lot of things that we run into every day. And so it's just observational from my life.
I read that you've performed all over the world. Can you share some places that you've performed?
All over the U.S. I performed in Toronto and Halifax, Canada. I've been to the Virgin Islands. I've been to the Bahamas. I've been to Australia. That's probably my furthest stop away. Did Adelaide, Australia. So, and this is just, social media doing its thing. People see you, see your clips, and then you get invited somewhere. Somebody invited me to perform in Australia with them that had just been following me. I didn't know that this would be a thing. I sort of just thought it'd be a one and done thing, maybe some local shows, maybe an open mic, but one thing led to another. Now I'm flying all over the world, all over the country.
You've also performed in a number of comedy festivals, one of them being the World Series of Comedy. And this morning I watched your dry bar comedy special, which was hilarious. Can you tell us a little bit more about your journey with that?
Dry bar is fantastic. For brand is primarily clean comedy, family-oriented comedy. They have expanded a little bit into more a broader audience, but it's a 30-minute special, and it's a comedy only platform. And I think as far as comedy only, they're the biggest platform. They have millions of viewers. So it's a great opportunity for us. It's a way for us to get good film that we can submit to bookers and clubs, and then we can get a lot of viewership. Drybar does a fantastic job of bringing you in, treating you well, great production quality, great film quality, a wonderful audience, really, really fun to do. And A to Z was a great experience, and I'd recommend it to anybody. And it has done a lot for my career. I'm able to submit that to corporate bookers. I've gotten some corporate gigs who prefer the cleaner side. I've really been lucky to be able to do that, and hopefully other similar opportunities.
What's your ultimate goal with stand-up comedy at this point?
Well, I love comedy and I love medicine. I think both are part of me long term. My ideal life situation would be I work part time, which I kind of am doing now. I'm working 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday. I usually take Friday off to do a show, Friday, Saturday to do shows on the weekend. I would like to maybe cut back even a little bit more, maybe a 3-day work week in medicine and do more comedy.
You have such a great message to share with audiences across the world. Was there a time in your comedy career, do you remember performing and there was like an aha moment or just an amazing experience that you had performing somewhere?
I think that very first big laugh, and luckily this isn't a normal experience, but my very first set at McCurdy's, it was a 5-minute set, and you don't have a sense of timing when you're doing your first set ever. My set that I had rehearsed was only about 3 minutes long. I was worried about having enough time, but with laughter, my set ended up being close to 8 minutes long. And
Oh,
so I had an applause break in the middle at some point, and that feeling of like a bunch of people coming together and laughing, and for a moment nobody's worried about their bills or their stress or whatever. I mean, I think life is about gathering as many of those moments as possible, and laughter is the most powerful way of doing that. Laughter sort of overrides all your other emotions and makes you forget the seriousness of life. Life ultimately wins. We all die. We all, have to pay bills, and we all have strokes, and life is ultimately dismal. But you want to collect as many of those gold coins as you can, and if you can make that a job and your assignment to people, it's just immensely rewarding.
is there anything else you would like to share from the comedy perspective?
If you're in a stage of your life and career where things don't feel good, I really have benefited from comedy in my life. It's given me a new sort of ambition and goal and joy and purpose. And I think people are in there like that used to play the guitar and wanted to be in a rock band. You still can, get your buddies together. It doesn't matter if you're 60 years old, go play a show for a local dive bar. I think that it's important that we nurture our artistic side and the things that we love to do, we're passionate about, and we don't just sort of do what we do every day and then fade, which I was feeling myself do. What little inspiration I can give people to do something like that, I have no regrets that I did it. It seemed silly at the time, and it was terrifying to do the first time, but now it seems like I can't get enough.
And what's great about comedy is there are people of all ages. There are
Hmm.
everyone from teens to people in
Hmm.
their 90s.
Hmm.
And I have friends that started comedy in their 70s and they're
Hmm.
out performing on stages. So
Hmm.
I'll say similar to golf, which you could do almost at any age. But stand-up comedy is a little bit, I want to say,
Yeah.
forgiving than
Yeah, there's funny stuff for everybody. It looks different. It looks as different as we look, and I love that. You could be on a show where some guy goes up in a walker and tells old guy jokes, and then someone else will go up and tell their LGBTQ jokes, or someone else will go up and tell their African American jokes. I'm telling my Laotian doctor jokes, and it's just fun to see and laugh, just from a different perspective.
It's true that we get stuck in a phase, and if we've been doing something for so long, and as we age, you kind of get stuck in that rut, but then we forget there's things we enjoyed when we were little. When I turned 30, I made a bucket list of 30 things I wanted to do before I died. And being type A, I completed those by the time I was 35. So I need
Yeah.
a new list. But I
Yeah.
read somewhere that we have decades of passion. And I know that, and
Hmm.
it could be different time periods. So for me, as I've looked back, I've tried different things. But what's so exciting is there's always time to try something new. And you shared, it's getting over that fear and just getting out there and doing it.
Yeah, I think of someone like Enzo Ferrari who had a car company and he was rich, but he didn't care about the car company. He cared about racing, and he was obsessed with racing till he died. And that wasn't how he buttered his bread, but still he couldn't get enough of it. And so for me, that's sort of what comedy does for me and what maybe music does for somebody else. So it'd be nice to see people really nurture that part of themselves.
And I wanted to shift gears and talk about aging. Vien,
Uh-huh.
how do you view aging?
I'm at that age where it's an issue, and it wasn't. I'm at that transition point where I start to feel things and regret things. And so I've had to really value my body more. And so I know that people live longer. I know there's advances in medicine and healthcare and nutrition. And when you're young, you take that for granted. You think it's going to be there forever. But now I'm having to steward my body more. And I want to have the highest quality of life for as long as I can. Taking care of my body and my mind and my rest is now a part of my mission every day that I didn't before. My body's a vehicle for the things that I want to do. My body's a vehicle for comedy, for travel, for medicine, all the things that I have to do. I need to be able to do them, enjoy doing them because, I'm able to physically do them.
So you mentioned this earlier, but I wanted to kind of bring this question back. What makes you excited and how do you find joy?
I guess I'm one of those people who climb like the next highest mountain. I set a goal. My goal was to perform in a club. And then I got to perform in a club. And then I wanted to perform in bigger clubs or clubs in bigger cities. It's just about the experience and the victory of setting and achieving goals for me. I've always been that way, academically, in medicine, but I don't like to just stay at that mountaintop. So for me, what countries have I not performed in? What states have I not performed in? If I have a half-hour special, how about an hour special? How about Netflix? How about HBO? It's just the chase and the journey are part of it. Forcing myself to grow as a comedian, writing new jokes. That's what gets me up in the morning, is the hope that I can do enough today to get somewhere different tomorrow. I get really excited when I've done enough and I can show that I've done enough to be somewhere different because there's a lot of barriers. It's very difficult to get booked anywhere in comedy. It's very difficult to get a stage in comedy. And that's how I measure my success.
And it's amazing that you have hope. I find when I'm in a rut, there's no hope. But having
Hmm.
hope and setting goals is
Hmm.
such an amazing way to stay
Hmm.
alive, to stay youthful, to keep moving. And the cool thing is that every day we can set a new goal.
Well, I read a book, The War of Art, which is not the art of war, the war of art. The author talks about a decade-long stretch of writer's block. And he essentially just invited the muse into his life every day by writing and writing and writing. It didn't matter that he wrote poorly, it didn't matter that he wrote well, but eventually, with persistence, he forced his mind and invited the gods of art to enter his heart, and he was able to write a brilliant work out of it. To me, comedy is the same thing. There's as much work and effort as there is talent and inspiration. And so if you keep inviting humor into your life, keep looking for it, eventually you get a breakthrough and it takes you to the next joke and to the next stage and to the next club. And so I try to approach it with persistence. You demand that humor to come, that joy to come into your life.
And what I love about comedy is you can take a really bad situation and turn it into a positive. I have an
Hmm.
extremely stressful job, and last weekend out taking a walk, kind of teary, not doing too well. And I saw one of my neighbors. She's one. She walks 2 to 3 times a day, and she said, "Honey, what's wrong?" And I was explaining, I have chest pains. I'm very stressed out, and she invited me to go to the arthritis group with her at the senior center. And I thought, "Oh my God, how bad do I look?" But then I thought, "Whoa, this is great material."
Yeah. Yeah, I find that eventually being able to laugh at something's very healing, you
Mm.
know? Like it's terrifying and terrible and hurtful, but then eventually you're over it when you can laugh at it, and then you've essentially made lemonade. A lot of humor comes from pain. We know a lot of comics who hurt, who suffer, who have issues, and it's therapy. I always get a lot of catharsis when I'm able to be on stage and talk about the things that might be from dark times.
Well, here at Snazzy and Sage, we love to talk about style. Vian, what is your go-to style piece?
I like kind of a colorful button-down shirt. and some nice pants and dress sneakers. That's my look because it sort of captures my personality. I'm a doctor, so it's put together, it's cultivated, but it's casual. It's my off-work attire. I'm not wearing a tie or a suit or anything like that. So you can relax. It captures the two sides of my personality.
Vien, if our listeners wanted to follow you, where can they find you on social media?
My social media, most of my handles are at Comic Doc, TikTok. I do a lot of vignettes with my staff. It's not just stand up. I do little medical humor vignettes. Comic Doc on TikTok, Comic Doc on Instagram, just my name, Vien Phommachanh on Facebook. And then if they want to see my dry bar, it's called Open Up and Say Ha.
That's great. I love that. And do you have any upcoming shows?
You can see on my website, comicdoc.com. All my dates are on there and up to date.
Is there anything else you'd like to share?
No, I just thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I love that we have a shared love for comedy and that it's augmented our lives so positively. And hopefully other people get out and do fun artistic things or at least catch a comedy show.
Absolutely. Well, it's been great having you on the podcast. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Snazzy Sage. If you loved today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. Want to elevate your style and confidence? Visit snazzyandSage.com to explore individual and group coaching that helps you look and feel your best from the inside out. Until next time, stay snazzy.